I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo del Real, here with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, who, as you know, is also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 266th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk Ambler Road. We're going to talk copper, yields, gold, PGMs, uranium, the Trumpster, Catlin Clark, weed, cannabis, a lot to get into. But before we get into that, we're going to say hello to Mr. Hodge, first and foremost, as we always do. How are you, sir?
It's would have been 420 a couple of days ago, I guess. That was not planned. But yeah, I hope you had a good celebration and a good day. And maybe we'll get to cannabis. That's a lot of topics you got there on the list, Gerardo. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. It's a busy week. By the time y'all see this, we would have had a great 420 hike with a bunch of our friends on Saturday morning. And so we're looking forward to that. Nothing like a nice, healthy hike, to start off your 420 and detox from the Friday shenanigans as they tend to be. So long-winded way of saying I am absolutely fantastic. Let's get right into it. Gold higher, still near the 2400 level. Yields higher. Dollar index was above 106 most of the week, slightly below that now. Rates, of course, correlating pretty well and tracking with that. Copper is stubbornly bullish. It's above 435 a pound as we speak, and even the Goldman Sachs of the world, who I hate agreeing with, JP Morgans of the world and the Morgan Stanleys of the world, who I also tend to hate agreeing with, they are all now doing the about face that we said they would, and calling for not copper surpluses, but copper deficits. So let's start with copper, because that and gold are the two kind of anomalies to me because of how high the dollar index is and because of where rates are. I'd love your take on it, because I know you watch those rates, as I do, pretty feverishly.
Copper's inflating as inflation reinflates. So that's the easy takeaway. Inside that, there's all sorts of things that you can talk about and that the media is talking about, whether that's treatment charges at zero or below zero in China, meaning that the smelters and the refiners are now actually paying to get supply into their operations as opposed to charging to bring supply in, meaning that supply is thin. You've got other people saying it's gone too far, too fast. It's, copper at 435 or 440, which you just said is the highest it's been since June of 2022. I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that. What I do agree with is, rates have gone higher and the dollar's gone higher and commodity prices have gone higher. We've been saying that this inflation is sticky, and it's not just copper. It was gold and cocoa, and now copper is just adding to the list. Last week we talked about how, silver was starting to join the party, and this week I saw you put PGMs on the list. So copper is just a part of that, commodity complex, and that's going all the way down and zooming all the way back out. We've been saying that, that we're due for phase 2 of a commodity supercycle. We held a big event about it at the end of March. I got long of copper itself in foundational profits in February, and that was the right call. And now the miners are starting to follow along. So, I don't know. You can talk about the eroding supply in Chile, and we mentioned that last week, and we mentioned Panama, but the chart for copper is bullish. Inflation is reinflating, and that seemingly is spreading across commodities. And so the takeaway is bullish copper for me.
Well, look, Daniel, we're very bullish copper around here. The portfolio is very bullish copper. My personal portfolio is, copper and lithium are my two biggest weightings. Then the next one would be gold. So we have to talk gold and how stubborn gold has been. I'll be honest, I'm surprised it's holding that 2400 level despite that dollar index flirting with that 106 level. I understand why the dollar index is where it is, especially considering the geopolitical uncertainty around the world, the capital inflows from other countries. Hell, we live in a world where we have a couple of wars going on simultaneously that we barely even talk about. And, that's going to intensify. I hate to get to the societal portion of the podcast, but it all correlates right now and it all is interrelated. And look, breaking right now, the U.S. is set to veto a UN Security Council resolution to accept Palestine as a full member state of the United Nations. Well, then I would ask, what the fuck we got a United Nations where if there's a, majority vote to do something and then the U.S. can just come in and step on it? It makes absolutely no sense. So I say all that to say that if y'all believe that Israel can just kill an Iranian general on soil where that wasn't supposed to happen, and then Iran attacks back and attacks military targets where no one is injured, and then as a result, Israel says that it was attacked, and the U.S. says we will retaliate, we stand by Israel, and also the UN says, well, we have a resolution, so Palestine can be a free state, and the U.S. says, no, that's not going to happen. If you think that the nations that are being, bombed to the Stone Age and not allowed to participate in their own versions of their own democracies or even dictatorships, if you want to call them that, but they're not allowed to do it on their terms. If you think they're going to sit idly by and just say, okay, we'll take our lunchbox and go home, they're not, because some of them don't have a home to go to. So I say it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that explains to me the dollar index being as robust as it is right now.
Yeah, just one of two conflicts, as you mentioned, and we've mentioned all the catalysts and then the reasons with central bank buying, et cetera. We've also got an election this year that's going to be contentious, and so you've got all the geopolitical and societal reasons to own gold. It's definitely shaken off the correlations, and could go all the way down close to 2,300 and still remain bullish. And so I see that miners are starting to go up as well, and even junior miners are starting to catch a bid. So I think you're in a bullish time for gold. I think it's decoupled from its typical inverse correlations, and it's one of those times that your stocks can go up 50% and 100% and more as quick as they can go down 50% in bearish times. I'm talking about the juniors, the thinly traded side of things. So you should be long of gold. I was writing about that this week, and we can show you how to do that in various publications, of course, because they're not all created equal, and some will go up more than others and at different times and for different reasons, and that's sort of some of the stuff we help spell out. You mentioned the Ambler Road. I feel like I should talk about that just for 1 second, because it's an interesting segue, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it's a big project in Alaska, VMS,
my old stomping grounds. Absolutely.
A massive sulfide project, copper, zinc, copper, gold, etc. Or silver, gold, copper, zinc, excuse me. And so anyway, approved project, right? Permitted by the BLM, given the blessing. And then under the Trump administration, at least in 2020, I believe it was. And then there's been a fight over the access road, so the so-called Ambler access road, for the past couple of years. And the Biden administration this week said, the media reports are that they're going to say that they're not going to approve the access road. So the project, for all intents and purposes, remains stranded, right? Trilogy gets, cut in half in a day down to a 60 million market cap. And of course, South 32 is their 50-50 JV partner. So it just goes to show, that's the only reason I wanted to mention it. It goes to show the precariousness of future supply. And even if you've got a project that's been, given a blessing in a first world jurisdiction like the U.S. and Alaska, that it's not always guaranteed, and then politics are still at play. So that was one thing. And the other thing is that it's, I was reading some takes that it's, overall bullish because it, takes that future supply, or what would be that future supply, off the shelf. And it's why there is a super cycle, right? Because it's hard to get these projects to come online in the time you need them and on the budget that you need them to. So anyway, that was sort of my takes after seeing that headline this week. Did you happen to see it or look at it at all?
No, I did. Again, my old stomping grounds. Lisa Murkowski is one of the few politicians that, for the most part, I could care whether she's a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. She happens to be a Republican, but I really respect her views on the majority of the stances that she takes. And, she came out and was very, very adamant that this is a violation of, federal law, and that Alaska should have the right to govern its own lands, and that, there's precedent for that. And so I expect this decision to be challenged, but I don't know how far it'll go. I completely disagree with the overturning. I mean, again, like you mentioned, this is a permitted project, right? This is, in essence, the project needing an easement to make the right-of-way easement so that you can access the project more easily. And No, it's a black eye for Alaska. It's a black eye for economic development in Alaska in a region that needs it. There were a lot of corporations, native corporations that have a lot of influence in Alaska that opposed the project initially, and after really digging into the economic impact it would have on the communities nearby, some came around and actually went ahead and supported the project. And so, look, there's a lot of opinions and a lot of thoughts, but this is why you said it beautifully. This is why we're in a super cycle. This is why the companies that have the stuff that can actually turn into a mine one day are so valuable, and will become even more valuable, because this stuff, it's hard enough to find it. It's hard enough to find it in economic concentrations. It's really hard to find it in economic concentrations and get the green light from the federal and state government to actually put it into production. And then you still got to build it. That takes years, right? Construction and getting the mine going. And so precarious situation that we're in as far as critical metals and battery metals go specifically. But you can make that a profitable situation for yourself if you know where to look. And, that's what we try to do is kind of guide people along with some of what we're doing. Again, we eat our own cooking around here. We don't just sit back here and say, hey, look at copper, look at lithium bottoming. I think uranium's put in a good bottom and it's headed higher. We're actually writing checks and putting dollars behind these opinions and thoughts and insights. And so some will work, some won't work, some will get stuck in the mud. That's just the way that it goes. But when they work, and it's more green than red, definitely, usually, fingers crossed. And when we got the tailwinds.
Is that it was almost a tit for tat for the project in Idaho that we're following, that we shouldn't talk about in depth here, but that we can tease a little bit. So this is a project in Idaho that also has a critical metal component that is also due to get a record of decision from the government this quarter, and will likely be the opposite of the Ambler Road for a number of reasons. They're going to improve the site. They don't need to make a 211-mile access road to get to it in the middle of Alaskan wilderness. It's already been mined out, and then, like I said, they'll clean it up. And there's a critical element that the Department of Defense has already been giving them money for. So you can see the differences there. Both U.S. projects, one in Alaska, one in Idaho, one is BLM, one is Forest Service, but one has been given money from the government recently and is being aided by the federal government, and one was being fought in court by the federal government. And so for our money, we think the latter one is going to be approved, and we've been saying that pretty vociferously with articles and videos we have out there. So we can put a link up to that, because that's one of the big catalysts for that project to go forward. And it's not just the, Department of Defense giving them money for the critical elements component. They've also got a near $2 billion now loan guarantee for the capex of that project, right, from the Export-Import Bank. So a little bit different circumstances than the project up there in Alaska, and we think will pay off for investors instead of the other way around.
No, absolutely. And look, we did, a marketing promotion around this company about 3 months ago, I believe. And, it's up over 100% in those 3 months. So that's one so far that if all you wanted was 100% gain in 3 months, all you kind of had to do was click on the button below, right? And not now, but then, and read the report and read why we thought the valuation merited a higher valuation and the catalyst, and we kind of laid all that out for y'all. And then ta-da, you're up 100% in 3 months. Investing is easy. I joke. Nick and I have been following this for over 10 years, and it's been stuck in the mud for many, many years. But as we get closer finally to a permitting decision that we think will be a positive one, the market also believes it'll be a positive one. I don't know if we get that decision this quarter or next, just because it's an election year. That'll be interesting.
Sure, the public guidance is still for this quarter. I mean, that's what the public guidance says for sure.
Sure. It'll be interesting to follow up on that. I want to pivot to uranium real quick. $90 now. We got out of the 80s. I know a lot of people were worried that we were going to drop below the $80 level and get back to the high 70s there. Didn't happen. How are you feeling about uranium and a potential getting ready for the next leg up?
I think it's okay. I don't have any, uranium level insights or, supply and demand insights to give you. What I can say is that it looks like it did consolidate its leg up. and is not going to break down from that consolidation. It wants to now go on its next leg higher. So, yeah, uranium is still bullish. It falls in that commodity category. Those things are reinflating, like we talked about a couple of minutes ago.
Yep.
And yeah, the ETFs, both the Sprott URNM and the URA, have bounced off their consolidation levels and look like they want to go higher. So they continue to own uranium, and the thesis continues to be intact.
Let's get to PGMs. Platinum's had a good 10% bounce. You were writing about it earlier or yesterday. Palladium's got a 12, 13% bounce all here within the last month. We've seen names that are attached to the PGMs. One stock that's in the portfolio that had dropped some 50% from, all-time highs now is up another 50% from that low, and looks to have legs, some technical challenges, as you noted in your piece earlier, but looking good. I couldn't help but notice that a lot of the lithium bears point to the emergence of hybrid vehicles and how well they're selling. And look, we say on this podcast all the time, folks, there's more than one way to make money. You don't have to be just a lithium bull, which I happen to be in the mid to long term. I'm also a PGM bull for the exact same reason, because I believe hybrids will play an important part in the clean energy future that, governments around the world and states around the country are applauding. And so there's more than one way to make money, and they're going to make money for you at different times. And so that's why a portfolio that's diversified is so important, so that you're able to rotate capital from your winners to potential losers, but losers that maybe have clear supply-demand fundamentals that are favorable and that you can exploit at bottoms. You can't do that if all you have is losers. And if all you have is, a basket of one sector. That's great when that sector is flying high. Everybody feels like a genius when that's happening. But when you get a correction and the correction lasts for a year, a la lithium, you don't feel so smart. And so it's important to diversify and know how you're hedging things. What are you hedging your gold portfolio with? What are you hedging your lithium portfolio with? I did it with copper, right? Because again, it seemed easy enough. I have good PGM exposure. That's helped. I did it with gold for a while. That's really helped this downturn on the lithium space. And I took some profits from some of my lithium positions, rotated them into those sectors when they were beaten down. And now I'll do the opposite. Now I'll wait for those names to continue to make me money and take some off the table and rotate it back to the beaten down lithium sector. The amount of checks that we've written in the lithium space in the last couple of months, like when we're about to write another sizable one, we clearly believe in the supply-demand fundamentals in the midterm for lithium. Short-term, we may be stuck in the mud for another couple of months. That's very possible, absolutely. No crystal ball here. But in the midterm, top-tier names like the Patriots of the world, absolutely going to be all right. Those are tier one deposits in tier one jurisdictions that you just don't find every year or every 5 years or even every 10 years. Those are really special discoveries that will see their day once again.
Yeah, I would add, make sure you don't get too overweight any single commodity or stock at any given time. I tend to try to balance out a little bit among the commodities. And something else I do that you may not do is, I get exposure to them also via ETFs and countries and producers more so than you do with juniors in Junior Resource Speculator and Junior Resource Monthlies. So PGM, same as silver, starting to catch a bid now, just like, gold. You said the percentages there, up 10 to 12% in the past month or so. The thing that's interesting about PGM specifically is, a lot of that production comes from, Russia. And so there's not a ton of ways to get exposure to it. So when you're out there looking, Ivanhoe's got a good deposit. There's some in South Africa. You could look at Sibanye, and then you might buy like a South African ETF. So it's a more concentrated play. Bravo obviously has a very nice palladium dominant deposit in Brazil that continues to get bigger, and they have cash and they're drilling and they're trenching, and things seem to be getting better at depth. And we're still
tier
looking
one
for
deposit,
zones.
folks.
Yeah. So it also got beaten down on the way down, which is what you were talking about. It cuts both ways. I was looking at the chart, it's doing technical things now. I put the levels in my letter this week, and that's part of the service that we provide. So We'll have to stair step back up, but looks like it wants to do that, and looks like the macro market wants to cooperate with higher metals prices here. So, yeah, whether it's PGMs or copper or gold or silver, there's, different ways to skin cats, and, we enjoy doing that, not in a, psychopathic type of way.
Ooh, copper, baby. Come here, girl. Uranium. Did I get your uranium take?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get to a lot of the shenanigans going on out in the world. I kind of start with the Trumpster, man. It's been a bit since we talked about him, but he's actually in a criminal trial now, unlike the civil trials where he gets to write the checks and whether you believe he's guilty or not. He's written a lot of checks to make things go away, right? So a lot of his accusers actually end up with a lot of money. So whether or not you believe he's guilty of those things or not, what I can tell you is he is most definitely writing checks to make those things go away, right? Or being told he has to. There is a pattern of that here, him writing checks to women that have accused him of being inappropriate with them. So this one's a little different. This is a criminal case. And this, like, to me, encapsulates like his mind state as how he views himself relative to the rest of the world, including the government. So he's sitting at his criminal trial. And of course, the jurors are not supposed to be identified because of the vitriol that comes with being on the jury. Wow, if they find him guilty and you have the names, you will have some psycho out there looking to kill these jurors. That's just the political climate that we're in, right? So what does Trump do? Trump pulls out his smartphone and it starts kind of like pointing towards the bench, and the judge and his attorney, his own attorney, absolutely simultaneously let him have it. I thought it was a good moment of, this is who I am. I don't like, whether or not you like him or not, the guy is who the guy is. If you vote for him, you know what you're getting. He's not hiding it anymore. He never hid it, really. Like, he is who he is. He's all about himself. He's not about you. He's going to grab him by the pussy. He's going to pull out the phone and try to compromise the jury. He's going to do whatever he feels is right according to Trump, not according to voters, not according to constituents, not according to the country. It's all about himself. So, I don't care who you vote for. At the end of the day, like, we're due for a great reset, government-wise and politically. And, we've talked about that enough on this podcast here. But just absolutely be clear on who you're dealing with here. And I thought that just encapsulated it well.
Yeah, I haven't paid too much attention to the trial. I try not to dwell on those things, but I did see that he was, mumbling under his breath and was told to be quiet, and was tweeting about the judge, and despite a gag order. So, Trump's going to Trump. It is what it is. The media loves it too. So in some respects, this even bad press is still press, right? And so he keeps himself in the top of the charts and at the tip of people's tongues. I'm interested to see who the election, how the election comes out. It's fast approaching. I mean, who you got?
I'm agnostic on this one, Nick. I really am.
No, not who are you voting for? Who do you think wins?
I actually think Biden. I actually think Biden wins, and I'll tell you why. I have several friends, and then people that maybe are close acquaintances that I wouldn't qualify as friends, but that we're able to have civil conversations about different candidates and different opposing views. And sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, but it's always cordial. It's always why, and explain your take to me, and that kind of conversation, right? The stuff I wish America would do more of. And I've spoken to several people that voted for Trump the last time that said, I don't like Biden, but I can't vote for Trump again in good conscience. I just, with everything that's gone on, everything that's going on, I don't believe the man anymore. And so that's interesting. Not if a Biden voter or a Democrat says it to me, or a leftist group says it to me, but it's interesting when it comes from people that were very, very, Trump flag outside and all that the first go around. So there's a change there. The Democrat side of it is going to vote the way they're going to vote. But there's some hardcore Republicans that at least in my circle, like, have absolutely changed on that. And it's not so much about Biden. It's just more about Trump and how they've gotten to know him more as a man.
Interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have no idea. Flip a coin.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Speaking of flipping a coin, we had the WNBA draft. That's the women's NBA draft. For those of you not aware, Caitlin Clark was drafted by Indiana. Caitlin Clark, of course, from Iowa State. One day, if she continues to do what she's been doing to the college basketball players, may end up being the single best women's basketball player on the planet. She clearly is, or was, the single best women's college basketball player in the world, and maybe the best ever. You know, the coach during the Final Four game, the opposing team's coach, LSU's coach, they asked her about Caitlin Clark, and there was a moment where she grabbed Caitlin Clark and whispered something in her ear, and the reporter said, "Hey, what'd you whisper to Caitlin?" Like, it's interesting. We don't see the opposing coach usually grab the star player after a loss and you know, say something. She said, "I told her, sure am glad you're getting the hell out of here because I had nothing I could do to stop you." Right? And she's just absolutely unstoppable. And not only is she a phenomenal scorer, she's a phenomenal passer and makes everyone on that court better. And so I watched more college basketball this year on the women's side than I did college basketball on the men's side. And if you look at the debate, so here's the context. The debate going on now is she's going to make $80,000 this year from her rookie contract. And so everybody politicizes everything, or class warfare is everything in America at the very least, or at least on social media, right? And immediately the response was, well, if they can get the kind of viewership that the NBA players get, then they should get similar contracts. Now, I agree with that. The contract should still be proportionate to the viewers, though, right? And so when I looked at college basketball numbers and I looked at the men's Final Four and the women's Final Four and the game she was involved in, they actually were, you know, they outviewed, they got more watches than the men did this year. And I know for me, if I get the opportunity to go see her live, I absolutely want to see Caitlin Clark live in the WNBA. So does she deserve, you know, 15, 20 million off the bat? No, she's going to get that endorsements. She just signed a Nike endorsement. I guarantee you it's double-digit millions, probably
She's
in the order.
In insurance commercials too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they were waiting for her, and she's going to be money. She is nice. But she shouldn't be making $80,000. I don't care what those numbers look like, Nick. Look, man, there's no way, just off of merchandise alone, her stuff sold out in 3 minutes. You can't tell me she doesn't deserve more than $80,000 from the team that gets to license and sell her merch. She doesn't get a cut up. It's impossible. There's no way. And so I would love to be able to quantify for that for you all. And I hope somebody that has the time and is smarter than I is actually able to break down the viewership, the merch sales, what she gets from that, and then, you know, the rest of the stuff. Because again, the 15, 20 million coming from Nike, that's for her line of stuff. That isn't going to apply to the merch that, you know, the team is selling. So I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I don't think it should be $80,000 for the single best college basketball player that we've seen in a long time. Women's.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a take, and I don't think people have to have a take on everything. I've seen the takes going around. You know, she was offered $5 million by Ice-T to play in his league. He's got, I guess, his own.
Ice Cube.
Oh, sorry, Ice Cube. I'm sorry, getting my ices mixed up.
Get your ices
to play in his
league.
On, so she could have got a higher contract if she wanted. You know, I think the market is the market. I think the NBA doesn't, the WNBA doesn't attract a lot of viewers, and the NBA covers a lot of their costs. We'll see if she changes that. She's been great for the sport. I mean, all that aside, you know,
God,
I even had my daughter watching some of those games just to show her, and they sort of look alike with the long dark hair, and my daughter was playing basketball. So, you know, she's got her spot in the limelight now, and she'll get her endorsement deals. Is she going to change the trajectory of WNBA viewership over time? It remains to be seen. Is she going to be good for Indiana and their merch sales? Probably. Yeah, about her contract, I don't know, but she's going to be just fine, I think. Like I said, she's already in State Farm or some other insurance company.
Yeah, State Farm, Nike today. Like she'll have a few more, but no, I absolutely believe she'll change the way that the WNBA is viewed, and I think, you know, I think she did that for college basketball, and I think it's going to carry over into the WNBA, but we'll see. We'll have some metrics here once it gets started. I could tell you this: the WNBA and then the networks believe it because something like 85 to 90% of their games are going to be televised versus last year, where I think 20% of that same team's games were televised. So they've at least bought in, which says something to me, right? It says they believe it at least. We'll see if it kind of materializes. We got to touch on one other thing, and I wish Jody DeRouge, if you ever want to come on, Jody's great, right? Like, I love his Twitter. He's a great follow. Obviously, huge success with all sorts of things on the mining side of things and on the exploration side of things. But he also has some great political takes, and Jody helps me keep on the pulse of Canadian politics because for every tweet about how great Corvette is, or how great a project is, or how great whatever is, you're gonna get a tweet about how not great Canada is right now and how not great the Canadian government is. And so I wish we would have had him on for this because he's got skin in this game. But the 2024 budget just increased the capital gains above $250,000 for individuals from, it was already at 50%. It's now going up 2/3 on capital gains for 250,000 and above. And so, I mean, 2/3 is steep, man. 50% is steep. And this applies to real estate. I mean, this is assets across the board. This is, you have a farm, you have more than 250,000 in capital gains. Good for you. 2/3 of that, above that, is going straight to the federal government. And one, by the way, that according to Jody and a lot of people in Canada that speak on Canadian politics, they're not very happy with. So it's in the fourth turning. That's the conclusion, according to Nick. I haven't read the whole book, and I got to get going.
That's where I would have brought it immediately too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just wonder if it's a sign of things to come. I know there's conversations here in the U.S. about following suit, maybe not in such an aggressive way. And I always say the corporations have more power here, and the rich have more power here because of the lobbyists. But we'll see. We'll see when it hits the fan. That's the first thing that comes up, right? Let's go get the rich.
Yeah, you said exactly what I would have said. One of my main takeaways from reading the fourth turning is that they're gonna need to pay for the deal that they're gonna need to make with citizens, right? Here in the coming decade, half decade, or whatever. And so the past couple of weeks and months, certainly after the State of the Union, I was telling you about how many times Biden mentioned, paying your fair share, and the New York Times has been writing about paying your fair share. And north of the border, it's been the same with the Trudeau administration. And I saw the news come out yesterday on capital gains and legacy or intergenerational properties. And so they squeeze, right? It's seemingly got to come from somewhere. And so you need to be cognizant of that as an investor and as a citizen, and do the best you can to insulate yourselves from that, to the extent that you want to. And so like a couple of things, I guess. If some people are okay with that, and to a certain extent, and some people aren't, right? It's a very personal thing. Like,
Sure.
You and I have a mentor who's in California, has very high taxes, and you ask him and he says, yeah, but my family's here, and I've done well enough, I can afford to pay my taxes, so it's not top of mind for me, right? I don't try to get out of California or avoid paying them. I sort of take that as a cost of living. You and I probably have been a bit more aggressive. I mean, you moved to Texas, I moved to Washington. I don't do everything in my life because of taxes, but I do be proactive about minimizing my tax bills with the way I set up corporations and hiring accountants to advise me, and tax loss harvesting, and then things like that. So you have to decide how important it is to you, and what measures and precautions you want to take to insulate yourself from it. But it's not going to get any better, is the takeaway. I mean, the government's only spending more, the deficits and the debts are only getting worse. And the only people that it can come from is the people that have it. I mean, you can't squeeze blood from a stone, right? So these taxes for the affluent, for real estate, for death taxes, for et cetera, capital gains is where it's going to come from. In recent episodes here, I've talked about Spokane and how we've got a new mayor, and the level of homelessness here, and how it's an epidemic, and we're short on housing, and the level of overdoses. Well, she's come up with a plan now to generate some money for that. And where do you think where and how do you think it's going to come from? I mean,
from
she's
Nick,
asking people to
Nick and
increase
family.
the property taxes, right? And so, yeah, I mean, where else is that going to come from? So I look forward to paying higher property taxes for services that I won't benefit from, and that's how it's going to go for a while now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, look, it's again, we live in interesting times, and I think they're going to get even more interesting, folks. I'm supposed to remind you every week to go to dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe to get my rantings and ravings every now and then, some good thoughts and insights. Mr. Hodges' wisdom and intellect and insights, and the insights and thoughts and opinions of our talented group of editors. It'll go straight to your inbox. A lot of really good information. There's a lot going on right now, folks. You got the halving, which is which would have happened by the time that you all watch and read this. Curious to see. We'll get right to what I'm watching for the week. Curious to see the effect on Bitcoin. Very curious. Just as a spectator, I still have no skin in that game, but curious to see what copper does if it continues its march. I think it's marching towards 5. It's not going to go straight up. Nothing goes straight up. But curious to see that. I know Patriot Battery Metals' MOU with Albemarle is expiring soon. I think within the next couple of weeks. I would anticipate an update within the next couple of weeks as a shareholder, a major shareholder. I would hope there's a thorough update, whether it's a yay or a nay. And, to me, all indications, just by looking at the continuation of the work that's been done, and everything that's been said publicly, I think that's a very, very, very good marriage to be had there at Corvette. So I'm watching for that. And I'm watching to see which one of these companies that I'm thinking about selling the portfolio, give me a reason not to, because, it's one thing to be wrong in a bear market. In a bear market, we're all going to be wrong on the early stage explorers because they're not going to be able to raise the capital to explore. Or they're going to dilute themselves out of a compelling market upside proposition. So a lot of times they wait for a better market, and sometimes smartly so, most times smartly so. Well, guess what, folks? We got a better market. And if you all cannot perform and explore your assets with $2,400 gold, $435 copper, $28 silver, I could go on and continue, then you're getting kicked out of the portfolio. I don't care if it's down 70% or 60%. You're going to go. There's enough positions that are up triple digits and quadruple digits to justify taking some of those losses to offset some of the gains that we've had in there. So I say that, say I'm definitely watching the next few months to see who gets exploration work done here over the next several months. Y'all are on the clock. Please give me a reason to keep you. I put you in there once upon a time for a reason, but specifically Junior Resource Monthly, that portfolio is getting bloated, and we're not going to be watching companies that aren't doing anything. They can go, they can go to portfolio heaven along with, some dollars that were allocated there. That's fine. What are you watching, Nick?
Yeah, shit or get off the pot. And capital isn't infinite. So yeah, I've had some legacy positions, ones that I sold a while ago in the letter that I held on to, for whatever dumb reason, thinking they were going to come back, and they haven't. And so this week, I too have been cleaning house in my own, portfolio stuff that I sold in the letter long ago. And is, raising cash, like you said, writing checks for a copper company here in the next couple of weeks and wanting to deploy it into things that are actually executing. So yeah, you got to get out there and be exploring. Last week, I told you I was wanting to see what the Fed members said about the higher inflation rate. And lo and behold, it's higher for longer. Even Jerome came out and said, expect higher rates for longer now. And so that was confirmed. You've seen the consecutive down days in the broader indices, including, smaller caps, the Russell and the NASDAQ now, breaking neutral to bearish. We'll wait and see. No conclusions there yet, but some wind has come out of those sales. And so it's gone into other things like that we talked about here, the coppers and the PGMs of the world. So I guess what I'm watching is what other metals and commodities that goes to, including lithium. So, and rare earths. One thing I wanted to mention is that we do have a rare earth private placement open that I'll be writing a check into. And, while some metals like gold and uranium have had their move, copper is having their move. Lithium has come off the lows. Rare earths like NdPr has come off the lows, as they say, but they haven't had the robust recoveries, and so that's what I'm watching. I want to see where other sectors of the resource space that this inflation and higher prices goes into.
I like it. Well, I hope you found some of that useful, everyone. I am Gerardo Del Real along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 266th episode of our weekly therapy session that we like to call Investing in Bizarro World. I will be out next week, everyone. Mr. Hodge and the special guest likely will hold it down. We will see you in 2 weeks. Have a great week, everyone. Mr. Hodge, send us off with some words of wisdom, please.
Have a great week. If you have any suggestions for special guests or topics, send them in. See ya.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.